she used the California law as background for her dismissal.
Blake Lively is pitching a full-on fit now that a judge has swatted away her latest courtroom maneuver.
It's a huge risk, and so it's not a fair fight. They're going into this with uneven risks on either side.
She's suddenly resorting to California's Me Too legislation as a way to dodge the defamation mess she started.
It's just that in this case, it looks abusive.
Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds basically coerced his 7-year-old daughter to spit out a revolting line in Deadpool and Wolverine.
He's basically looking at his 7-year-old and being like, well, if you're not going to have what it takes to read this line, which happens to be about, Wolverine's penis, then I'll just go find another actor. Total sicko, the exact opposite in my viewpoint.
At the center of this warped spectacle are sexual harassment allegations, bombshell defamation counters, and a legal system scrambling to interpret a newly minted law, all while Hollywood icons cry foul with their stylists on speed dial.
Blake has expectedly filed to be dismissed from the lawsuit against her. Her argument that she is presenting is that the lawsuit in and of itself is illegal, okay, because the matter at hand is pertaining to sexual harassment.
Things went off the rails right after California's freshly minted Me Too law, Code of Civil Procedure, Firearm 47.1 or 1, kicked in on January 1st, 2020.
This Me Too law out here in California, Code of Civil Procedure 47.1, is a problem for the Baldoni camp.
How big of a problem is it?
And that law, well, it's basically a protective shield for anyone wanting to hurl accusations without worrying about a lawsuit creeping up to bite them in the backside.
She wants the court to use California law. That's her argument. And every federal court has to deal with these conflict of law issues that we call them.
Blake filed a motion to toss out Baldoni's defamation countersuit. Her strategy of choice? California's shiny new Me Too shield law. Think of it like a free pass to lob allegations and then slam the courthouse door on anyone who tries to fight back.
And they want us to believe that Justin Baldoni is the creep in all of this. This is running parallel to him shouting at Justin Baldoni in a penthouse about his wife being uncomfortable.
And it works because now Baldoni has to prove actual malice. Yup. He can't just show she twisted the truth. He's got to show she did it knowing it was false and with a bad motive. Good luck with that when the legal equivalent of gaslighting just got statutory backing.
California law relative to the lawsuit against Lively for defamation is a little problematic. So we have not seen the opposition yet that the Wayfair parties are going to make to the motion to dismiss filed by Lively, but I suspect that they're going to want New York over California law. We'll see what they do.
But is it valid though if the judge says yes, you can use California law in this instant? Could they dismiss his case because of that?
And if he loses, he's on the hook for her legal bills, very pricey ones, no doubt, plus punitive damages, maybe triple damages. So he'd lose his name, his money, his company, and likely any desire to ever speak publicly again.
But here's the real problem for him, and our concern for Baldoni is if he goes forward and he loses his countersuit based on defamation, there's a huge risk to him because he then has to pay Lively's attorney's fees, treble damages, punitive damages. It's a huge risk.
In the most reality-bending move, Blake's team argued that Baldoni himself admitted she believed her version of events. Done. That's it. She believed it, so it can't be malicious, right? Because being deluded now counts as innocence?
It requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit. So he actually has to show that Blake Lively's anything she said, any communication she made about SH, that they were made in malice. And so that's a higher standard that he has to prove.
The public's not having it. People see what's up. A high-powered Hollywood actress, not some low-level assistant, is twisting laws intended to protect genuine victims into her personal armor. Regulations meant for the voiceless are now weapons in the hands of stars with red carpet handlers and endorsement deals. The look of it? Horrendous. It's like seeing someone shove caviar into a food bank donation bin.
It's a problem that wouldn't be there if they had done this lawsuit a year and a half ago. So this is a brand new law. And what it does is it requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit.
But let's talk about who maybe deserves more scrutiny than anyone else. Ryan Reynolds. Yes, Mr. Quippy and adorable on social media. Behind that well-oiled PR grin, something a whole lot bleaker. Let's go straight to the ultimate meltdown moment. The Deadpool dad disaster.
And then the jury has to look at the totality of that evidence and say, is that malice? And there's certainly evidence that would lead one to believe a jury could find that.
Reynolds casts his 7-year-old daughter, Seven, in the next Deadpool flick. Because sure, that's obviously the best place for a child's acting debut. But then it spirals from there. A lot. One of her lines? A comment about Hugh Jackman's privates ending up in her father's mouth. And no, I'm not making that up. That's an actual line. She didn't want to say it because she's 7 and still has some sense of right and wrong. So, did her dad say, "All right, sweetie, no problem"?
Nope.
He threatened to replace her, replacing his own kid. That's not parenting. That's just blackmail with a family twist. He happily shared this on record, like it's some hilarious story. Like pressuring your child to utter a sexual line on camera is comedic gold. And then director Sean Levy casually mentioned they made her do anywhere from 70 to 500 versions of it.
Sorry.
500 takes? Of a minor voicing something that disturbing? That's not filming, it's mental torment. And here's where it gets laughably awful. This same guy, the beloved Hollywood dad from social media, has the nerve to brand Justin Baldoni a predator. He's out there telling anyone who'll listen that Baldoni's a predator, while literally forcing his daughter to perform raunchy dialogue about a man's anatomy on camera. If irony took physical form, it would knock him flat. And we can't forget his 12b6 legal filing. Most of these motions are routine, but not Ryan's. His was so inflamed, so amped up, it felt like he was going for a prize in courtroom roasting. It barely came across like an attorney wrote it. It read as though Ryan himself sat down and said, "How do I craft the harshest, most pompous rant ever submitted to a judge?" And hey, he nailed it. He didn't just aim to get the lawsuit tossed, he made sure to publicly humiliate Baldoni in the process. A guy who lets his wisecracking superhero persona bleed into his parenting and legal battles is nobody's hero. Sure, PR might try to spin it, but the facts are glaring. He shoved his own child into an inappropriate scene. He blew up a workplace issue into a public spectacle and weaponized his fame in a way that'd make actual movie villains seem tame. So let's be real, Ryan Reynolds isn't some playful underdog. He's at the top of Hollywood's hierarchy, swinging away and smirking behind jabs. And now, with tapes, screenshots, and a fed-up internet, the facade is cracking.
Fast.
Let's dissect Ryan Reynolds, or should I say, Hollywood's grinning assassin. This man built an entire brand on quirky jokes and self-deprecating wit. Oh, look at that. He threw a friendly jab at Hugh Jackman again. So amusing. Except behind the scenes, the veneer is dropping at warp speed. His carefully curated PR might sell you gin and comedic superhero flicks, but off-camera, he's serving up a full villain storyline. Because evidently, the nice guy act vanishes once the cameras are off. Word is, behind closed doors, Reynolds is controlling, hot-tempered, and petty. We're talking blow-ups in luxury apartments, hurling accusations that Justin Baldoni is a predator. Not in official statements or in the media, but in hush-hush talks with WME bigwigs. He didn't say it because he truly believed it, he said it because he can. Because he's got clout. It's like Mean Girls Hollywood Edition, with Ryan as Regina George in a tailored suit. And if that's not enough, let's talk about the infamous knife pool character. Yeah, let's not pretend it was just some cheeky parody. Reynolds played that bizarre, sleazy role in Deadpool, then admitted it was modeled after Justin Baldoni. But sure, it's just art, right? Just a random coincidence that the person he mocks in interviews, badmouths in secret, and sues in court also got turned into a scuzzy caricature in a billion-dollar franchise. That's not clever meta-humor. That's malice with a Hollywood makeup team. These so-called jokes? They're not jokes. The barbs? Not satire. Their personal beefs dressed up as punchlines. And Reynolds is the guy who'll throw the stone, hide his hand, then grin for the paparazzi. He doesn't just push back. He orchestrates entire narratives and gets away with it because people are too entertained by his tweets. But don't get it twisted. He's been propped up by Hollywood power brokers like Ari Emanuel for ages. It's easy to stomp on someone when your friends control the industry and your enemies can be blacklisted just for fighting back. Speaking of stomping, we need to bring up the New York Times. Because what started as a celeb feud has exploded into a full-blown operation. Baldoni's team claims the Times didn't just report the story, they basically co-wrote it. They say the Times worked with Blake Lively before her CRD complaint even landed. That's like drafting a Yelp review before you've set foot in a restaurant. Emails, metadata, unpublished drafts. The receipts are rolling in. And here's the kicker. That kind of scheming might sabotage the fair reporting privilege the Times typically hides behind. You know, they were just telling you what was filed. Don't sue us fallback. That doesn't fly if you're cooking up the story side by side with the source before there's even a complaint on file. That's not journalism. That's pre-packaged PR. The kind that says, let's tank someone's reputation, and we'll frame it like unbiased reporting. Brian Friedman, Baldoni's lawyer, isn't messing around. Experts are calling his filings strikingly shrewd, and with reason. He's ripping through their "we're just observers" argument and dragging the Times into the legal spotlight where it belongs. For a change, the New York Times might have to answer for helping swing the wrecking ball instead of just narrating the demolition. And California law might actually favor Baldoni here. Funny, considering that same state law is currently stabbing him in the back thanks to Blake's motion to dismiss. But consistency isn't exactly a mainstay in showbiz litigation. The courts have to figure out whether the law applies the same to Lively and the Times. Spoiler, it won't. Hollywood has its darlings, and if you assume Ryan and Blake can't stir the media in their favor, you're too sweet. Now onto the real ringleader of PR mayhem, Stephanie Jones. Yes, she could teach a masterclass in backstabbing. Her company, Jones Work PR, was meant to handle wayfarers, Justin Baldoni's company, public relations, yet instead of protecting her client, she apparently became an inside source for Blake and Ryan. That's right. According to a lawsuit, she snatched private communications by confiscating the phone of her own staffer, Jennifer Ale, right before Ale left the agency in August 2023. Not shady at all, right? And we're not talking a couple of screenshots. Jones brought in security, lawyers, even a forensic data specialist. It was a full-on extraction. Lo and behold, that very material, miraculously doctored, popped up in Lively's CRD complaint and that NYT hit job. Because nothing screams trustworthy like a bunch of tweaked documents that surfaced after a corporate-style phone raid. Stephanie Jones made her name by being feared in Hollywood. She boasted clients like Dwayne Johnson, Lauren Sanchez, and even Tom Brady, supposedly. But one by one, they're leaving her.
Why?
Maybe Tinseltown realized that the last person you want handling your PR crisis is the crisis itself. She was once unstoppable, but now it's the opposite. Everyone's backing away before she takes them down with her. And here's why it matters. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively tried to make Baldoni look like the manipulative creep in this scenario. Yet if you peek behind the curtain, it's them and their team staging media takedowns, distributing altered files, coercing children under threat of recasting, and branding co-workers as predators in hush-hush chats around Hollywood. Reynolds didn't just abuse his clout. He handed the weapon to his PR handlers, the press, and his own wife, then acted stunned when people noticed the carnage. And everything comes full circle. Ryan Reynolds didn't merely play Deadpool, he became him. Sarcastic, vicious, merciless. Except this isn't a movie, and the folks he's attacking don't magically reappear in the next installment. There's nothing amusing about warping someone's reputation, using your child as a pawn, or feeding the media edited evidence. There's zero heroism in menacing people off camera while playing it cool in public. So when Reynolds pins the Predator label on someone, keep in mind, This is the same guy who compelled his child to spout lines about male body parts, the same guy who mocks colleagues in blockbuster franchises, and the same guy who cracks jokes while launching assaults at those trying to stand up for themselves. The real predator isn't the person fighting to clear his name. It's the one seizing the narrative before the truth can surface. Let's bring Ari Emanuel into the conversation. Yep, the former Hollywood powerhouse who basically built WME through sheer will and a bit of a god complex. If ever there was a figure to represent unchecked authority, it was Ari. But guess what? He just got dethroned, courtesy of his own moves. Because he turned loyalty into a cudgel and axed Justin Baldoni for, well, no professional reason at all. No misbehavior, no broken contract, nothing. Just a personal gripe fueled by his devotion to Ryan and Blake. He went on the Freakonomics podcast, the one that never conveniently aired, and literally said, "I can do it." So I did. Very impressive, Ari. That's not real power. That's just petty. Imagine being so cozy on your throne that you openly brag about a retaliatory firing on a podcast. Except people were recording. That casual admission might end up being a massive piece of evidence in Baldoni's defamation case. You flat out told the world your choice was about loyalty, not logic. So Ari didn't just fire Baldoni. He might have basically gift-wrapped a check for Baldoni's lawyers labeled damages. And karma didn't take its time. After Silver Lake swept in with their $25 billion buyout of Endeavor in early 2025, Ari was encouraged, forced to step down as CEO of WME. That's not just a job shift, it's poetic payback. The man who once held everyone's destiny in Hollywood is now left watching the rig system he built crumble. Symbolic retribution? Absolutely. Fate basically strolled in wearing couture and kicked the door wide open. And the aftermath is sweet. With Ari out, Reynolds and Lively lose one of their biggest protectors. The guy who could ruin careers with one call is no longer holding the reins. That vacuum of power means a big influx of accountability. Baldoni's case just got a serious boost. Not just because of the quote, but because it confirms what everyone suspected. This was never about fair play. It was about cliques, grudges, and traffic driving headlines. It's basically Hollywood high school, but with billion-dollar stakes. Now, let's look at the ridiculous argument Lively's legal team tossed into court. We didn't lie, we just left some details out. That's called lying by omission, and we've seen that show before. Then there's the grand finale, the entire Hollywood house of cards tipping over. This whole lawsuit unveiled something uglier than a spat at work. It revealed the ways fame, media alliances, and industry strength are all harnessed to destroy lives. Reynolds, the once beloved social media joker, is now shaping up to be the final boss of double standards. He's the type who forces his kid to utter nasty lines on set, bullies people behind closed doors, then claims victimhood to the public. Sorry, but calling someone a predator while acting like one isn't noble, it's delusional. And let's not start on Lively's slick use of California's new Me Too law. That legislation was crafted for authentic survivors, not to be a bulletproof vest for celebrities who want to fling accusations and dodge the fallout. She's no helpless newcomer. She's a wealthy actress with Hollywood's might behind her, using a law intended for the voiceless as her personal PR shield. And the public is waking up. The story is shifting. People want answers. Why were these accusations rolled out so meticulously alongside PR hits? Why are certain internal messages stripped of context? Why is the so-called predator getting blacklisted while the accusers laugh about roping their kids into scandalous script readings? It's inconsistent, unless you recognize it as a hit job dressed up in victim clothes. From leaked emails and metadata to phone raids and recorded confessions, the evidence just keeps piling up. And it's sure not painting Reynolds and Lively as the good guys. Instead, it shows them as string pullers who use their celebrity and media influence to steamroll reputations and silence anyone who might talk. Now that the engine behind this scheme is sputtering, they're scrambling to maintain the facade. But the tide's shifting. The unconditional support, the press manipulations, those sneering court documents, they're all losing traction. And the best part? No one's immune now. Reynolds can't just tweet his way out. Lively can't rely on legal spin to claim innocence. Ari Emanuel can't rearrange the narrative from a boardroom he no longer controls. The truth just barged into the conversation, and for once, Hollywood might not get to script the ending. And we're only getting started. Hit that subscribe button so you're in the loop for the next jaw-dropping turn in this wild drama.